Welcome to TalkersToGeeks.com. Justin here, back with more video game reviews, and today we're going to be talking about Slave Zero X, which is available for your PlayStation, Xbox, and other console and PC devices. As always, I give you a brief synopsis. Let's talk about the story. Here's the synopsis. Here we go. From the top of Megacity S1-9, the sovereign Khan rules with fists of iron and flesh. Beneath the city's rotten foundations, a vengeful warrior embarks on a journey to murder him. 5 years prior to the events of the Dreamcast game Slave Zero X brings new life to a world where horrific living machines known as slaves are primed to become the latest tools of war in humanity's long and bloody history. A secret band of warriors known as the Guardians hope to stop these biomecha from being unleashed upon the world. But one swordsman among their ranks has a different idea. Use the enemy's own weapons against them by merging with a stolen slave unit prototype. Shou will become a furious devil in pursuit of killing a false god. And that is the overview of the game. And believe it or not, even though that this is a side-scroller, old-school action game, which I'm gonna get into a little bit with the gameplay and graphics and details, this actually does tell the story throughout the various levels. There's various cutscenes that fleshes out the characters, and it did a good job of presenting what the synopsis was saying. Now let's talk a little bit about the gameplay and of course the graphics. I'm gonna go with graphics first here. And the graphics, it's for me, this as someone who grew up in obviously the 8-bit, 16-bit era. As some of you know, NES is my first system. I grew up from NES to Sega Genesis, then went straight to the PlayStation. This has that PlayStation action side-scroller, arcade side-scroller that reminds me, especially graphically, aesthetically, it reminds me of Strider 2 and Strider 1, the arcade versions. It has a really good aesthetic, and it's a nice throwback feel to it. I really love the look and feel of this. I love the details of it. It's a very gorgeous looking game, and it really gives you a nice throwback to those games of those 32-bit action scroller beat 'em ups. And I thought it did a really good job when it comes to the graphics. The frame rate, I didn't really have any hiccups or any problems with that, especially on my PS5. It runs and performed very well. Graphically, for those who want to see blood, you do have the option to do the blood levels. You don't have to have it as splattered as default as I have it here. And you can also turn it off. And for those who have sensory issues, you actually can turn off the flashing effects. So it's really good points there when it comes to accessibility. Now, as far as the gameplay goes, it's not much to really go too much in detail. It is just a side scroller beat 'em up, which has various combos that you can unlock as you progress through the game. Your combos, you have your triangle as your heavy attack, your square as your light attack. You can use the L1 button to dodge. As you're dodging, you become virtually invincible as you're dodging, and for like a split second, that way you're not taking damage when an enemy strike. But it is precision in the key. As far as the challenge goes, the challenge and difficulty can range from normal to hard. I would say definitely the toughest aspect of this game is the boss fights. I died a couple of times until, just like a typical beat 'em up, you learn the patterns of the bosses that you do. And let me just show you one of the boss fights here. As you can see, this guy moves fast, so you just really gotta know when to block, when to strike, when to invade, when to use your heavy attacks, when to use your R2 to use items against them. It's a very challenging boss fights in here, and it's epic at sometimes as well, just because of the way the aesthetic is, the way the graphics are, the story. It worked very well for me. I don't have really, I will say my biggest complaint with this is like I would love to have a little bit more accessibility when it comes to combos, and because you just pretty much it's old school beat 'em up. Like you can literally just play the game with just pressing one button and dodge and hit the heavy attack, and that's pretty much it. But that doesn't mean that you can't upgrade your character here. You have various upgrades. You can maximize your health, meter your speed, your burst recharge. You can sync speed, your IED stocks, and you can also do more things as well, such as buying health packs. You can also buy other things such as restocking. You can do more of the IEDs, which will help you as well. And they give you a couple of options, and of course, What will it be if you couldn't change your skins? You have the option as well to customize and change your skins, the palette, and the shading. As you continue through the levels, you'll be able to get more of that as you progress. So overall, the gameplay is simple, but it's fun. It does a really good job of throwing it back, and I really had fun with it. So let's talk about sound. So here is a sample of the game.
They were meant to aid the climb of my chosen one. Now, they're fated to be squandered by you.
You were never going to choose another master. You despise the biomecha. Their dark science is the same that keeps you breathing. If I hadn't acted...
Act? All you do is act. Reckless. With no ability to see things through to their obvious end.
This ends atop the Megacity, with the Sovkhan's head in my hands.
If you think Isamu would have...
The pilot defies the master.
He's not my master anymore.
Voice acting is a throwback to the voice acting. I've seen a couple of reviews where people are like, oh, the voice acting is horrible, or the voice acting is eh. I think that honestly, the approach for the voice acting was to give it that throwback feel of how the voice acting and the delivery were back in the PlayStation 1 era days. And I think for that point, if that was the approach, they did a good job of really giving you kind of a campy, cheesy feel, but it's still, as sometimes it does get serious with the performances. So I really did enjoy the voice acting in this. I thought it worked very well for the aesthetics and the feel of the Slave Zero series. And I thought the music as well. Music did a good job of keeping me engaged in the action. Not something I will say I'm gonna go and get a soundtrack and try to hunt down a soundtrack, but it does serviceable job. Now for the final thoughts, I'm going to give Slave Zero X a solid B. It's a nice throwback. It's a nice throwback to those old school games such as Strider, of course, the classic PlayStation RPG games. Action RPG games, action side-scrolling games. So it does a good job. It's serviceable enough. Frame rate, I didn't have any issues with. Story was pretty decent. I had fun with it. It could have had a little bit more variety when it comes to combos and unlockables and things like that. Yeah, but it's still a nice throwback. And for me, I'm a softie for these type of games because we don't have much of them like this anymore. So when I see a game like this, I sit back and remember the good old days. And I just say, you know what? We need more simple games like this. And you know what? It's a bloody good time. It's not going to be something you're going to be on your top 10 list, but it is something that I'll say you shouldn't sleep on. Don't sleep on Slave Zero X. It's a fun, good time, bloody good time. This is Justin from otakustogeeks.com. If you like what we do here, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll catch you on the next one. Oh, by the way, this game will only take you 6 to 8 hours to complete. Later days.